Hey everyone, it's Alex the Real Mr. Robinson. Welcome back to my chronological recap of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and today it's Thor Ragnarok, the best Thor movie ever made, the most comic book movie out there, and the movie that almost got Mark Ruffalo fired. Yeah, for those of you who don't know the story, like me, Mark Ruffalo got in trouble for accidentally Instagramming live the first 10 minutes of Thor Ragnarok at the film's premiere. If you look up some of his talk show appearances when he was promoting both Thor Ragnarok and Infinity War, like if you look up Colbert or Jimmy Kimmel, he'll talk about that instance where he got in big trouble for accidentally Instagramming live the first 10 minutes of Thor Ragnarok. Oh boy, at least it's good to know that Tom Holland's in good company. But anyway, let's get into Thor Ragnarok. Out of all the movies in Phase 3 of the Infinity Saga, this was the movie that I was really not looking forward to. I mean, of course I was going to go see it because it's an MCU film, but after Thor the Dark World, I just didn't really feel that level of enthusiasm like I did for Civil War, or Spider-Man, or the final two Avengers films. But at the Marvel event in 2014, where Kevin Feige announced the Phase 3 era films, he mentioned that Thor Ragnarok was going to be to Thor what the Winter Soldier was going to be to Captain America, and I trust Kevin Feige enough to be like, okay, I'll take your word for it. And yeah, he wasn't lying. This movie is to Thor what Winter Soldier was to Captain America, and I could not be more grateful for it. I never disliked the first two Thor movies, even with me being so meh on Thor the Dark World. It wasn't terrible, but this movie is, I won't say a reboot, but it's a revamp of the Thor series, where they pretty much got rid of everything that didn't work. No Jane Foster, no Warriors 3. Thor's a lot more comical and more relatable. He pretty much has the same personality that he did in segments of Thor the Dark World and Age of Ultron, except here it's the entire film. And for being a comedy, this movie really does love to torture Thor, because he has to go through several tragic events, like trying to stop Ragnarok, seeing Odin die, realizing that he has an older sister, Mjolnir gets destroyed, his hair gets cut off. So Thor really just goes through hell, but he still manages to be funny and have a personality. And it was this movie that really proved that Chris Hemsworth nails this character, and he actually has great comedic chops. It's funny to think back with the first Thor and Avengers film, people didn't dislike Thor, but he was definitely one of the lesser tier characters in terms of who everyone's favorite is. But this movie definitely changed that around and made him one of the biggest all-stars in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Chris Hemsworth's great, and Tom Hiddleston as Loki is once again fantastic. I actually prefer Loki in this movie than I did in the first Avengers. While I still prefer the original Avengers, I like Loki here more because much like with Thor, he is more relatable, and it comes down to his dialogue. Loki's dialogue in this movie feels a lot more natural and less Shakespearean, and he ends up being a comic foil to Thor. There are a lot of points in this movie where he's the butt of the joke, whether he's put into an awkward situation, like when he first sees the Hulk again, or when Thor decides to get help with Loki, or my favorite, when the two of them are in New York City, and Loki gets trapped in an endless portal by Doctor Strange, and when Doctor Strange decides to release him, he just falls to the ground, plop, and goes, "I have been falling for 30 minutes. So he's great, but I also like Loki in this movie more than the first Avengers because we actually get to see a redemption arc with him. He is still the god of mischief. He still has his great moments as being villainous, but I like how the end of the movie, he has a change of heart. He is by his brother's side by the end of the movie and ends up becoming a savior to Asgard. And again, Tom Hiddleston just does a fantastic job. In terms of the rest of the supporting characters, what do you know? They're all characters whose names I can actually remember. Because one of the biggest problems with the Warriors 3 is that I had a really difficult time remembering their names. But in terms of the new characters here, you got Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie, who's probably my favorite supporting character in this movie. And I absolutely love her introduction. We first see her exit her ship on a trash field on Sakaar. She is drinking a bottle of alcohol, just gulping it down as she approaches these scavengers who captured Thor, but then she gets all tipsy and just kind of leans over to the side and falls into some trash and accidentally falls into the carcass of a rotting dead animal. And that's a great introduction for this character who ends up being a badass in her own right. As much as I wish that Sif was in this movie, I would take Valkyrie over her any day. And if the individual character posters for Endgame lead us to believe anything, she's gonna be in Endgame, and I cannot wait to see her again. Now, my other favorite supporting character in this movie is Korg, and when I originally reviewed this movie and when I covered it in my top 20 of 2017 video, I was kicking myself that I never once mentioned Korg, because he's played by Taika Waititi, the film's director, and he is just a walking rock of quotes. Very, very memorable quotes that I love. Hey, 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 take it easy, man. Oh yeah, no, this thing is a circle, but not a real circle, more like a freaky circle. This doesn't make any sense. No, nothing makes sense here, man. That's exactly what Doug used to say. See you later, new Doug. Or, everyone's favorite line from him, piss off, ghost! Moving that chair. This is one of the disadvantages of not having my old director's chair instead of this swirling chair. But yeah, Korg's great. I absolutely love this character. And we also have Jeff Goldblum in this movie as the Grandmaster, but really, it's just Jeff Goldblum playing Jeff Goldblum. But nothing wrong with that at all. And Jeff Goldblum in this movie made me laugh hard because he's just himself. He's in this weird, colorful costume surrounded by these gorgeous Jack Kirby-inspired sets, and he is just as dry as ever, and it just makes it even funnier. And that's one of the great things about Thor Ragnarok, because when you look at the humor in Thor 2, it was so awkward, and nearly every joke fell flat. This is the funniest movie since the original Avengers. It might actually be funnier than the original Avengers, but I remember seeing this movie for the first time in theaters and just laughing my ass off at so many moments. And I think the biggest laugh actually came from Valkyrie's introduction. But I love how the movie doesn't forget to have its more dramatic elements, because, like I said before, Thor goes through literal hell in this movie, where everyone and everything he's familiar with is gone or dead or destroyed. And it absolutely works, considering that by the end of the movie, he saves his people from Ragnarok, because as Odin said, Asgard's not a place, it's a people. And he eventually takes up his mantle as King of Asgard that they officially set up in the original Thor film. And more or less with Loki by his side, who decided to stick around and have a full redeeming arc. We have some returning characters with Idris Elba and Anthony Hopkins as Heimdall and Odin, and Idris Elba still does a great job, and he has more to do in this movie than he did in the other Thor films, and Anthony Hopkins actually showed up to work this time. He cared about playing Odin in this movie more than he did in Thor the Dark World, and I think part of that has to do with the fact that Loki is still in disguise as Odin, but even when he's officially playing Odin, he still does a really good job. And then we also have Mark Ruffalo returning as the Hulk. Bruce Banner is also in this movie, but Mark Ruffalo actually plays the Hulk more than he does Bruce Banner. And when it comes to these two characters, it's officially the Hulk's movie. We get to know a lot more about the Hulk himself, and we realize that he has the mannerisms of a toddler, and yeah, I just love the Hulk in this movie. It's finally awesome to see him talk in this series. And Mark Ruffalo just does a great job with the motion capture. And then we have the film's villain, Hela, played by Cate Blanchett. And this is pretty much Marvel's Maleficent. Like, right down to a point where she kind of has the same background, where she got screwed over. And Cate Blanchett is just soaking up this movie. She is loving every second she's on screen. She looks gorgeous, and she's also intimidating. She's a fun villain that really proves to be a challenge for our heroes. It's just a shame that they killed her off. If there's one issue I had with a lot of the Marvel movies, even some of the great ones that I love, they kill their villains and don't bring them back later on. And if I had one little issue with the movie, is that while it is very funny, I do wish there were some elements that they didn't quite make a joke out of, like the actual destruction of Asgard. That's played for laughs, even though afterwards it goes back to the drama and you realize the true meaning of why Ragnarok happened. But outside of that, I absolutely love this movie. The action scenes are absolutely phenomenal, especially the arena fight between Hulk and Thor, and the bridge sequence on Asgard near the end of the movie. And it doesn't hurt to have Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song playing. It's just absolutely gorgeous. The score by Mark Mothersbaugh is fantastic, and one of my top 3 favorite MCU scores. It's funny, it's quotable. It is a damn near perfect movie, and I know I've been giving this rating out to several MCU movies back to back to back, but get off your ass and go see it right now. After revisiting the entire MCU, I gave the highest rating to all the MCU films in 2017, so I guess you could say that was the best year for Marvel Studios. Now, as for the Stan Lee cameo, he's pretty much playing this old man on Sakaar who is responsible for cutting Thor's hair, and now that we have context that he's a Watcher informant, I would love to imagine that this is just the informant getting revenge on Thor after whatever the hell he put in that drink in Age of Ultron. It's a fun cameo, and I just love Thor's reaction. "By Odin's beard, you shall not cut my hair." And then Stan Lee's robotic hand opens up to this really bizarre pair of scissors and blades. And then Thor just goes, "Please, kind sir, don't cut my hair." So he just goes from Shakespearean to scared. It's awesome. Now let's talk about the two stingers. The mid-credit stinger takes place after Thor is crowned king and they decide to make their way to Earth. And Loki questions whether or not it's a good idea for him to go back to Earth. And Thor says, probably not. But don't worry, I think everything's going to turn out just fine. And then we see a shadow loom over them. Both brothers look up. Thor doesn't know what it is, but Loki has this look of terror on his face because he knows whose ship that belongs to, and it belongs to Thanos. And this is the scene that leads directly into Avengers Infinity War, which makes me confused why some people say that you should watch Ant-Man and the Wasp after Thor Ragnarok and before Infinity War, because with a stinger like this, why wouldn't you want to jump straight into Infinity War? You want to see what happens next rather than kind of wait another movie. Now, the end credit stinger is funny, but again, it's not really worth it compared to the mid-credits one. It's where the Grandmaster shows up on that Sakaarian junkyard where he's surrounded by scavengers, and he pretty much congratulates them on their revolution that Korg established. And there you go, that's my review for Thor Ragnarok. Hands down, the best Thor movie ever. Now we got one more. We're this close to Avengers Endgame, but we still have one more movie to talk about, and that's Avengers Infinity War. I have talked about this movie countless times last year in my regular review, spoiler review, top 10 list, so I don't know how long this video is going to go for, but we'll see what happens. But first, I want to hear what you guys think about Thor Ragnarok. If you've seen it, what did you think? Do you like this movie as well? Do you not like it? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and of course leave a comment. Don't forget to support my Patreon page, follow me on social media, and until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.